Hey everyone, and welcome to Blak and Mild and podcast, a very special edition. I'm your host Reginald, and today what I'm actually going to do is it's going to be an experiment. I'm calling it Blak and Mild Revisited. So basically, I'm going to go back and kind of just talk out my experience of the first 10 episodes. Um, I got this idea actually from a basically I got this idea from one of the systems that one of me and my typing partners use in the objective personality community. We do actually meta-analyses every 10 typing sessions when we're doing kind of our objective personality typing. So I figured, hey, you know what, why not leverage this and then also see if I can like learn something, giving myself an excuse to kind of learn here. So um, now, so there's going to be a few things here. Let me actually just do some gatekeeping. So first and foremost, for any of you guys who are watching who have no idea about objective personality, let me give you the quick rundown. So objective personality is really an attempt to be a successor to MBTI, the Myers-Briggs Typology Indicator. The way they're trying to do that is they're trying to leverage double-blind testing where you get two people in separate rooms. They give you them the same person, and the goal is to get the same type significantly over time, right, or consistently over time, to a degree greater than chance. And so once they do that, their whole idea is, okay, show this to the scientific community, and then get the ball rolling in. Okay, once they can say, hey, there's something reliable here, then they'll get into genetics and AI and all this kind of fun stuff. So it's still in beta, but I think a lot of the definitions and a lot of the insights in the system are very helpful to me and to a lot of other people in the community. However, I do know that some of you guys may have no idea what objective personality is, especially if you're like some of my friends who are just watching to support. So I did put some links in the description. One is directly to their beginner series where they kind of go in depth into the definition of terms and all that. I also created a YouTube playlist. Hopefully that will be helpful for those of you guys with short attention spans like mine. So 5 minute, 10-minute clips. There is one long interview at the end, but that is I chose that one because the person who was interviewing one of the founders had no idea of the system. So you get a really good idea of what this is like from a layman's point of view. So what I'm going to do here, I'm not expecting a lot of people to watch this actually. So, but if you guys do, so the game plan is I'm just going to kind of talk out loud, try and say things that I think are meaningful. If I start saying things and I sense that I'm bullshitting, I'm going to kind of just shut up and then repivot. Preferably, I would like to say things that kind of actually help me organize and build this podcast moving forward. So I'm kind of like trying to see what comes out here. And then from there, once I feel like I'm settled, I will then look at the live chat. So if you guys have questions, comments, or you want to kind of harass me, sure, do whatever you got to do. So, but I'm not going to be really looking at the live chat too much until I'm kind of done. So without further ado, I guess we'll just start. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about actually is the podcast as a whole. Like just given the fact that these are the very first 10 episodes and the fact that I did them within I think a 3 to 4 week time span, was very interesting to me because it kind of showed me like more so what my personality is like. So in the system, they call it sleep last, right? So very much about not knowing how to put on the brakes or pace yourself. There was this past week I think it was like either 4 or 5 just like back to back and on top of work stuff, and it was getting kind of crazy. So I was getting kind of drained towards the end there. So I think that was the first very interesting thing that I originally, if you watch like some of the first videos, I was saying, oh, I'm only going to do one a week or things like that. That went out the window very quickly. So I don't know. Now, with that being said, I think the pace that I did, especially this week, was not sustainable. I don't know what pace I'm comfortable with. Fortunately, I think some of that pacing is forced upon me by some of the limitations of I'm using StreamYard. So I'm using the free version. So they actually limit you, fun fact, they limit you to 20 hours of streaming per month, you know? So for me, that's actually why I'm actually going to start slowing down towards the end of this month, because I literally can't. So that arbitrary restriction is actually kind of helped me pace myself. So that's really cool. But I would say, I honestly, I need to figure out what that pace is. I don't want to like commit to anything right now. But my intuition is saying I should limit it to like 3 episodes like a week, and that's pushing it, honestly. Um, but that was really cool. The second major thing kind of going along with that is I tried watching. So part of my prep here, I tried actually rewatching some of these episodes that I made, and I was actually bored. I was like, oh my gosh, am I torturing you guys? Well, and so what I've been processing, and an idea that I've been having for a long time is, eventually what I actually want to do is I want to um, I still want to do the long format, like kind of the Joe Rogan style, but then eventually I want to actually start investing in another laptop, first of all, and then also editing software, video editing software, so I can kind of clip out the highlights and then distributed that out that way. So it would be like, whether it's like 2-minute clips, 5-minute clips, 10-minute clips. That way it's a lot more digestible. Because when I was watching it, I'm like, it's like 80% of this, it's like I can't sit down for an hour and listen to all this typically, So that is definitely something that I've been processing for sure. I don't know when that's going to be, because part of that requires financial investment that I don't know if I'm ready to do yet from a laptop perspective, because I'm doing these on my work laptop. So I don't think it's right for me to start downloading like video editing software on here, unless unless you guys are aware of like a web-based video editing software. I mean, that would work. But for now, I'm like, let me wait, let me kind of save up and then get a laptop and then do that way. So that's kind of been the next major thing that's been on my mind. And then finally, from a meta perspective, like one thing that I've been worried about is, I'm like, okay, who am I attracting to the show as guests, right? Not that any of them were like bad or anything like that. I actually enjoyed every conversation when they were happening. But so much like from a personality perspective, am I just attracting people who are like myself? And if I'm not mistaken, out of the 10 episodes, 70% of them, or 7 of them, let me not be too technical, 7 of them were thinkers, right? And I don't know what the percentage is on this, but a vast majority of them were extroverted. They were on the more extroverted end of the spectrum. So, and that does bother me, because I don't want to, how do I word this? I don't want to, I kind of want to learn more about like all types. I mean, maybe that's not surprising, but I kind of want to see if I can have a meaningful conversation with at least representatives of all, at least energies. So it's like, hyper introverted, hyper extroverted. So that those have been the three kind of first. Those are the first things that have been really kind of on my mind. Now, shifting over to the episodes themselves, I'm actually going to start with the most popular ones. So I'm actually very, I don't know if you guys are content creators, but whenever you put something out there, you're always like paying attention to, okay, how many views there are, even though you're not. At least for me, I'm not ultimately doing it for views, like, because otherwise I would be doing very different antics. But, I still care. It's like I'm looking at, okay, who's paying attention to what? And so I'm actually going to start with the 3 most popular and then just kind of break those down. The 3 most popular, the Uzair one by far and away is the most popular one. I think that one has like 250 something views, which I was not expecting. The second one is the Ikram one. And then the third one is the Gray episode. So starting with the Uzair one, that one was really cool. I'm really glad I reached out to Uzair to do that one, because I mean, I was honestly nervous to do it. I really I was really afraid that what happened on the Kendrick interview was what was going to happen to me. I was like, I do not want to get trolled the fuck right now. I'm not trying to get trolled right now, So, and then there was also just like if we're being completely honest, I feel like they're in the past, I don't think I've treated him that well. I think, from biases alone, like not even from a personal standpoint, I just think like just there was something that I just energetically didn't like when I first met him on the Discord. So I think I kind of was a bit abrasive. So I definitely apologized about that. And Uzer was very kind of gracious and kind of accepted that. So, and I think that allowed for a very cool conversation. I think that was one of the longer ones. I think it was like around 2 hours. And it was really cool. I think the first thing I really liked about it was Uzair does seem to have a very deep inner world. Personally, that's my personal perspective on that. I really do see, and I think that contrast was really cool. That he seems to have a lot of these, as I've said, like these very organic insights. For example, like the analogy of play and sleep, like play being, inviting everyone to your house all the time and then optimizing for that, making everything, I think you used the word palatable, versus sleep is like you're optimizing everything for yourself. Like that analogy, the time analogy, I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly, but there was one analogy towards the end where he was talking about how if you had to convince someone who's possessing your body to do all the things that you wanted to do, how would you go about doing that? Or would you be able to do that? And then he was kind of connecting that to the fact that, the you from 2 years ago is very different from the you now. So it's like, how are you keeping that consistency and that plan going? That was really cool. But it did make me honestly really insecure because I don't do that. I don't consider myself to have very deep thoughts, so to speak. So it was really, it wasn't hard. I don't think I was uncomfortable, but I mean, it did kind of highlight that, oh yeah, there were some people who were built different, you know what I'm saying? So, mentally. So that was an interesting, experience. I think the other really cool thing about that conversation, well, I mean, the fact that we were on different quadras, like everything was almost like completely inverted, right? It's like, it's like he's play last, he's play last and sleep first. I'm play first, sleep last. Totally opposite quadras. He's a decider, I'm an observer. Like it was a very interesting dynamic there. And so it was really, and what I noticed while I was doing it was he would say something and I'm like, oh, I do the opposite of that. That was almost like a consistent theme. I was like, oh yeah, I would do the complete opposite of that. So it's funny that, us being so opposite on the spectrum, it was interesting to kind of triangulate and see just how different we are. And for me personally, I was like, oh, it kind of gave me insight into what I'm doing, you know? So that was really cool. I really, I think that was a really good one. I am curious to see why it was still so popular though. One thing I was hypothesizing is like, he might have like a social network that's just really large. I think for both him, I think for all the top three, they have really large social networks. So I was like, okay, maybe that's factoring in. But anyway, like that, but I definitely would say that was a really cool experience to have for me. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I need to address on that one. No, I think that was just really cool. I think that's one that I'm probably going to revisit later. And maybe kind of go more in depth, but I think just that was a really cool one. Moving on to the Ikram one, Ikram being the first guest, I really appreciated her kind of supporting her and Leon, honestly, supporting me through kind of just getting this off the ground and kind of getting my FI to not freak out and stuff. That one I felt bad about because that was one of the few ones that I did rewatch. All the way through, and I felt bad because I was like talking over her a lot, and so that was like one of the things where, from a self-awareness standpoint, I'm like, why the fuck am I talking over her so much? And she was super patient and like super considerate and all that, but I was like, what the fuck am I doing? So, and I think that actually leads me to one of the things that I was noticing. Hopefully, this is not. I'm sticking to the Ikram one, but this is a larger point. I do notice when I'm doing the interviews, I can kind of tell who's more on the blast end, because people who were on the blast end, like who have savior blast, like I would just shut up, like, because it's like you don't interrupt them. Like it's like once they start going, you can kind of tell. Whereas for I think for a lot of the people at Save Your Consume, I felt more at ease to kind of interject. But I think the problem with the Ikram one was I do feel like I talked a little bit too much. Um, she had some really good insights too, and I think I should have been a little bit more careful. I think one of the things with that episode in particular, though, is because we've had so many conversations, it felt less like an episode and just like a conversation. Although I don't know if I should be treating her that way in conversations, you know. So it was an interesting self awareness moment to like rewatch that in depth and be like, why am I doing this? There was a lot she said in there though that was really interesting. I think a lot. So there was the status versus so there was this conversation of status, and she was very much associating that with TE, and she was saying, I think if I'm remembering correctly, she was like, TE and FE are a little bit different because TE is not about making you feel good so much as making you look successful. I was like, that's very interesting, because I do relate to that. I definitely do relate to doing things for the clout. You know what I'm saying? The appearance of things. You know, so it was interesting to have that conversation, and building upon that, just the contrast or the tension between the TE and the FI, in the context of status versus your, I think how she worded it was fulfillment, following your dream, you know, doing things that you actually want to do. Now I know Dave and Shan in the classes have kind of touched upon that, but I don't think they've really tied it into TE or in any sort of way. So that was really cool. I trying to remember everything. I do remember there was one other aspect that I did like talking to her about. I do think the race conversation we had towards the end was really cool. I've never talked. I don't talk much about that type of stuff. So it was really cool to get her perspective on like race and representation, and I was really processing it out, and that was where I was being super talkative because I was trying to like get my thoughts together. And I do want to have more conversations like that. I'm not like because if I'm not really big into like politics or like racism or anything like that. Like I honestly don't register those type of things. I'm sure that there are a lot of situations where I experience what people may perceive as something that's racist or insensitive. I don't like give a shit. But the fact that I was able to have that conversation with Ikram and really kind of test the waters there was really cool. And perhaps on the podcast I may integrate that conversation. I don't want to make it like a focal point, honestly, because it's not a focal point for me, but I think that was really cool that we were able to do that. I will say for that one, I wonder I think I left some conversations on the table with that one. If I'm remembering correctly, for example, she mentioned certain things about how she went through this period where she basically like went through this NI where she was studying philosophies and worldviews, and she was like trying to like religions and all this type of stuff. And I should have asked more about that. And I regret that. I do regret not kind of exploring more about that, especially if that's like her biggest demon, at least in this system. So, but it was, the fact that she was able to be comfortable opening up about all that stuff was really cool. The fact that everyone's been relatively open on my podcast has also been really cool. And that maybe that's a tangent, but I'm finding that weird. I don't know why people do that. Like, it does. I'm grateful for it. I'm happy that that's happening because I don't see a lot of that happening on other OP channels. But it is a surprise. I do think like everyone did open up a little bit on all the episodes. Which is I don't get why that's happening. Is there anything else with the Ikram one? Oh yeah. So there was actually one other thing. Ikram really brought to my attention when I was rewatching it, especially our FIs are in very different places. And what I mean by that, it's very energetically Like I would describe her as her FI is locked onto being a happy person. Like, and it's like this is not even just on my show. It's like on her YouTube, like the Skip and Mope. Or if you just talk to her, she's very giggly, very warm, very like trying to get the conversation going, and like she's smiling a lot, which is great to see a lot. But and what was interesting for me, if I'm remembering right, there was a point in the conversation where I described myself as, oh, I'm not a very happy person. So it was interesting when I was rewatching. I was like, why would I say that? And I think it's because my FI is locked onto the identity of you are not a happy person. And I was like, that's dangerous. So that contrast between us, I think, quite frankly, I think that does lend to her popularity, and I think lends to her being so personable and so liked and appreciated by a lot of people in the community. Because I think, you want to be around happy people. Like, I don't see why you wouldn't be. So I think rewatching that was what was starting to go through my mind, is like I need to move my identity to like a better place. So that was a really good learning experience for me. I'm sure there's more, but that was about it for at least right now. So that was a really good one. And then the third most popular one was the Gray one. So the Gray's a really great friend of mine. Gray and Ikram are really good friends of mine. The Gray one was really cool because I do not see her open up like that too often. She was having a lot of fun on that one, which was cool. I saw a lot of the feminine FI. I didn't realize, even when I talked to her normally, I did not realize the extent of how intensely kind of sweet feminine FI is, if we're being honest. Like, I think it's a very sweet function. I think she's very caring. And I think that showed in that, to me, I think that showed when we were talking, which was cool. I don't think I fully got what she was trying to get me to understand about the scientific method thing. I should probably like rewatch that shit like a few times, because I'm sure her explanation was really good. I'm not even saying it was against her. I think, like, I don't know how I'm a thinker, guys. I know I am, but sometimes it's like when people are logicking at me, I'm like, I will check out and I'm like, oh, it sounds good, and I'll stop paying attention. So I think that's what happened, is that when she was talking, I just kind of gave up. And I was like, all right, it sounds reasonable. So I need to rewatch that, because I think she was trying to get me to understand something and I wasn't getting it. Now, I think with that one, other than the feminine FI, well, I mean, she did bring to my attention how my masculine FI works, which was interesting. She talked about how her analogies are funny. She's like how she compared her masculine TE to her having a cannon, if I'm not mistaken, and trying to like destroy her opponent. But if the cannon misses the opponent, she's completely vulnerable. And whereas with me, she described me as having like a shiv or whatever, like some type of knife. And I'm not being super flashy, but I'll just stab you to death. And I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty accurate, just emotionally. So I thought that contrast was interesting. I did not realize that she saw me as someone who was like kind of saying, oh, they're there. I didn't know I was doing that to her. So it kind of woke me up to, and what's interesting about that is because sometimes that is how I feel, but I didn't realize people saw that. There was actually another person in the Facebook who described me as like intimidating or whatever. And like, I was like, oh, I mean, that's good, but I didn't realize you guys were seeing that. I just, sometimes I don't like you guys with the greatest respect. But I thought I was hiding it, but I guess not. So Gray bringing that to my attention was really cool. Other than that, the NI, I mean, so the whole NI with the mountain analogy, or not the mountain analogy, the whole mountain thing where she was talking about how she has this wonder of how, of history, and how, human beings are like the patterns of human beings repeat, and like that made me hella insecure. I said that on the show, I'll say that now. I am not that deep, guys. Like, so it goes back to the, that brought up. I think that's more of an NI thing though, because when how I was hearing that, I was like, I don't care that things recur. It's like that's kind of course, like, and I think I even said that in the show. It's like, of course that's gonna happen. That's a starting point. That's not something to me subjectively that I'm enamored by. Um, but I think it still makes me very insecure that people can experience the world like that. Because I think her experience is a lot deeper than mine, honestly. Um, I think other than that, I mean that like all three of those top three ones, really just really fun times. Um, Moving on to the rest of them because I think I actually have the luxury of time here. Okay, so Leon, that was torture. I'm sure for both you and I, just from the sound. So thankfully I remembered I have a mic, but I might have to do like a rerun with Leon, just run it back. Because I felt bad because I was like, man, it's super choppy and it's really hard to hear, and so I felt bad for you guys that happened. Now Leon's episode was interesting because I was able to delve into the Christianity side of him that I don't think many people know about. I think a lot of people, um, actually, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what people's impressions of him are, but just the Christianity, I thought that was a very interesting side of his FI that was really cool to explore. Um, and what was interesting about what he was saying, I don't think I told him this, but what was interesting about how he was using NI, or like seeing Christianity in this kind of hierarchical lens, it is actually so um there was once a period of time where I was very big into symbolism, um, Christian symbolism specifically, actually. So, and I think it was it was jumping off of Jordan Peterson. So Jordan Peterson had this like groupie named Jonathan Peugeot, who is very big into symbolism. And there was a period of time where I was like watching all that, and they, what Leon was saying and what Peugeot was saying, very, very similar. I do wonder if both of them, well, Leon obviously has NI, but I wonder if Jonathan Peugeot has NI as well, because he talks very much about this hierarchy and having, you know, one concept be in the heavens, right? So, and everything else kind of branching out to that. I may talk about that with you guys at a later point because that actually is something that does fascinate me. How our language of heaven and earth has evolved. Like I think it's still built into our language. I think it's shifted a little bit. For example, people say, "Hey, your head is in the clouds," or "Hey, you're down in the weeds," or we're getting down and dirty, or things like that. It's still in our language, this whole heaven and earth thing, and I think the meanings are the same. But anyway, we don't have to get into that. But I do think that Leon kind of started to remind me of all that, um, which was really, it was interesting to hear, and I do think we need to flesh that out more. Um, One other thing, and I don't know if this is just about Leon or just about FI. I do think so. I did try and watch before the whole sound shit. I tried watching a bit of that episode to prepare for this, and one of the things he talks about a lot is he does talk about, hey, yeah, I cared about this and I cared about doing, like, care is very much built into his language. And I was like, okay, is this so FI is about, I mean, and this is kind of obvious, Dave and Shan talk about this, but FI is about caring about things. And um so it kind of brought to my attention the fact that I don't talk about what I care about enough. I kind of, yeah, I get very insecure about talking about what I care about, because who, like, in my mind it's like, who cares what I care about? That's kind of the logic, um which I don't think is right. And I think, Leon actually has an advantage, or a potential advantage if he uses it well. But I think he has a potential advantage having FI as a savior, because if you lead with that care and that concern, especially from a business context, I mean, you can build trust with, potential customers very quickly. So that's my TE. So I'm sorry, I know that's not like sleep processing. I don't know if any of this is sleep processing, but whatever. Like, so that was really cool. Gray was episode 3. Episode 4. What was episode 4? Fuck. I'm not sure if episode 4 was. I don't know who episode 4 was. I forgot. I think episode 5 was Prem, so I'll do order of or like process of elimination. So episode 5 I think was Prem. That one was funny. I thought that was funny because it went exactly how I thought it would. We both went into the any stratosphere. But I think he did show, getting into the whole unconditional acceptance. I was suspicious prior to that conversation that was at the core of him, and so it was really good to kind of get down to that. And then he gave like an NI lecture, which was cool. If I do get the video editing software, I'll actually clip that out and post that separately. But yeah, it was interesting. His FE and Uzair's FE seem to be very much paying attention to where people's attention are, right? The whole marketing game, like they seem both to be very concerned with that. So I thought it was really cool to see that, to confirm that. Who's episode fucking 4? I don't remember. Because I thought, if I'm not mistaken, Uzair was episode 6, right? Am I crazy? I might be crazy. So either Uzair's episode 4 or Uzair's episode 6, but I don't remember. Who the fuck was it? I'm gonna have like a freak out live. Anyway, episode 7 was Kendrick. That one was interesting. I think just as a sequel to the interview that I did with him on his channel, where at that time I thought I was the same type as him, or that was the type I was given, actually, like played Blast. But I think that definitely confirmed to me that, at the very least, my Blast is not as intense as his. Because I think he's very good at like just going. Like it's like, hey, I have this thought that leads to like this many other thoughts. It's like, every time he talked, it was very like full, I don't know if that makes sense. It was very like, once he started talking, he could talk for a while and then he would stop. And then I would ask a question and then he would go for a while and he would stop. And so, which I thought was cool. I did like that I think that was one of the first times I've seen him open up personally, which I thought was really cool. Because normally I only see him from the lecturing standpoint, right? Like, you either see him lecturing or you see him interviewing, but it's very rare that you see, him as a person, right? Like what he cares about. And I mean, the fact that not only was he like fully open with that, but also the fact that he called my ass out for not doing that shit, I thought that was very needed. So that was really good. Episode 8 was Savannah. Episode 8 was for sure Savannah. Episode 4 was Felix. How could I fucking forget Felix? We're going back to Felix. Sorry. So Felix is my typing partner, guys. So Felix is the guy that I do my double blind testing with. That was really cool. I like Felix. I kind of did the same problem that I did with Ikram, though, where I feel like I talked over him a lot, which I feel bad about. Felix is a very patient guy. He's very patient with me. Trust me. I'm a bit of a handful. So, it was nice to see that he was kind of playing along. Actually, no. If I'm not mistaken, that was actually one of the longest episodes we did. I think that was like 2 hours and 12 minutes or something crazy like that. So we had actually a lot to talk about, and I think Felix is someone who's underrated in the OP community. I think he's someone who people, they sleep on. Like, and I don't mean that in a joke. Like, I think they're just not paying attention to Felix, man. Don't sleep on Felix, bro. Really insightful dude. But what I wish I did is I wish I kind of, much like I wish I did with Ikram, I wish I kind of started asking more of the NI fascinates me. So I wish I asked more like NI related questions, like what his NI is building, not just about, what we were doing. And, I think that would have been really cool to see like what his, I think I was trying to do that when we were getting into like the health and stuff, but like I think I was just a bit awkward there. But anyway, maybe next time. But and that, I mean, that definitely confirmed that I'm an extrovert compared to Felix. Like Felix is a very calm guy. I'm very not a calm guy, right? So that was really cool. So jumping back to Savannah, Savannah's a sweetheart. I can't even. There's no other way to say that. She's like a great person. I think she did definitely thoroughly break down my assumptions about masculine TE. I mean, I knew her beforehand, and I mean already when we interacted before that, I was like, okay, yeah, it's this is not the aggressive thing that people are making it out to be. But I think especially after that conversation, that shit was dead. I was like, oh, you know what? Like feminine DI is the best. Like just a very, very considerate. And if like one thing that I noticed she would do a lot, which I thought was very endearing, is she was so considerate of the audience that even the thought of something being offensive, she would stop and be like, guys, like I'm not trying to, like, she would do that. And I was like, okay, that's really cool. I would never do that. So I don't know what that says about me. Like, just I'm not considerate, I guess. But I think she definitely is. And there's something specific. The Atomic Habits conversation was very important to me because that really simplified my understanding of what the hell that is going on there. That was important. The masculine FI conversation was very key. With the ducks on fire story, I thought that was hilarious. And I really do think that captures how my masculine FI is a very it will burn. It wants to burn things to the ground sometimes. So that was really reassuring that a 7-year-old also shares my sentiments. So that was awesome. And yeah, I think just in general, I think she's she's very calm. I think she's very settled into herself, which I admire, honestly. I think she was the most settled of all the people I talked to, just energy wise, which I liked. I did like the fact that she seems at peace with herself, So so that was 8. Number 9 is Jono. Jono's a cool guy. I don't know what else. I don't really know what to say to that. I think that episode speaks for itself. I thought it was cool. It was very OP centric, which I don't like, honestly, but it was very OP centric, but that was okay. I think the thing with Jono, I think Jono's interesting because he's very he's chill in a different way. I don't think it's necessarily this whole settled thing, this settled vibe that I get, but it's just more like he feels very, I don't know if it's non-judgmental, but if he's judging you, there's no fucking way that I would know. Like, so I think that was a cool energy to talk with. He's very passionate guy. He does seem he seems very accepting of his type as well in a different, like, I guess he is also settled. Yeah. So it's like, he also seems settled. He seems very accepting of his type and what he has to work on. And that was really cool. Just given the fact that it was OP centric, I don't know if there's much more that I can say about that one. It just, I guess the one thing that it did remind me of that conversation, it brought back the sleep analogy that I have, just because I've been struggling to understand sleep a lot, as you can imagine, as a sleep last, right? I'm like, okay, organizing and building related to identity, what the hell is that? Like, what are you building? But it reminded me of the conversation we had, and it came from me. I've always been connecting sleep with the movie Inception, right? So the movie Inception is literally a story about people going to sleep and dreaming. And I think sleep is more about dreaming, creating a dream world, right? Where you're building internally, things that are significant to you, right? Whether it be FI, TI, SI, NI, right? And then I think the beauty of sleep processing is, one, it allows you to escape and really kind of revisit things, right? So for example, in Inception, if you remember, they were in limbo. They were able to recreate their childhood home. They were able to recreate all these places that they loved and cherished. And they were also able to create, like, more from an NI standpoint, they were able to create like these cities that have not even yet been envisioned, right? That they might want to create in the future, and these type of things, right? And test the limits and those type of things. So I think that's the advantage of sleep. Is sleep allows you to go into this dream world and prepare and create something that is dreamlike in the outside world. Like, I think a great example of something that this might be, like, my SI is super attached to this trailer that just came out, so forgive me, but I think the recent trailer that came out for, I'm not even a gamer. I don't know why I'm so attached to this fucking trailer, but I'm gonna be, don't judge me, guys, but recently, so Super Smash Brothers, they have like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate or whatever. They recently came out with a trailer for Sephiroth, which is the main villain for Final Fantasy VII, and they include him in the game. But the trailer for it is like fucking movie. I don't know what else to tell you guys. The shit's hype, all right? And like, I think that could only come from a very sleep place. Like, someone had to have envisioned that trailer, right? Because there's no way you fucking just come up with that, and I think that is the beauty of sleep. And so I think Jana reminded me of that, and it's just bringing that back up to the surface is really cool. So I am happy about that. And then finally, the Kevin interview, that was intense. I liked it a lot. I think out of all of the interviews, I like all of them, but I think the Kevin one is the closest to what I want this podcast to be, because it was a really good balance of, yes, there's the OP side, but it also went to like the very, very, very human place. Like he was talking about some real shit on that one. Like, I can't even, you'd have to watch it. I can't, that was really good. I don't know what else to say. That was a really good one. So I really appreciate him opening up. That was a really good one. I got some feedback from someone saying, hey, this really helped me understand FE versus FI, or FE versus TE, or whatever it was. I guess I really do feel like Kevin. So the interesting thing about the Kevin one was it did remind me of Uzera, because I think their TIs are very similar about, they're always like over analyzing the fuck out of questions. I don't know what to tell you guys, but they're both doing that, and that might just be a TI thing, but the OP side of it was cool, but I think it was really once it started getting to that human place, that was where it was really, really cool. So is there anything else I need to kind of like reflect? Oh, okay. So bringing it back to what can I take away from all of these things that will help me organize and build this podcast to something more fulfilling, right? Apparently that's how this works. One, I definitely need to keep this mic, because I'm not going through that fucking sound quality shit again. No, that's my observer freak out for the day. I'm not doing that shit. Okay, so mic, I do definitely need to invest in some video editing software to kind of clip these things out and distribute that. My FI is stronger than I thought. I guess that's the one takeaway. So from a podcast standpoint, I have to make sure my FI is in a good place. I mean, there are some episodes on there that, maybe you guys can guess which ones they are, but there are definitely some podcasts on there where I think the first one with Ikram, I was stressed out, and you can tell. And then, so that's my only freebie. All the other ones, like, there are some where I'm more on edge than others, right? And I think you can tell. So I need to make sure, I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I need to make sure that's in a good place. I need more guests like Kevin. I don't know how I'm going to identify that, but I need more guests like Kevin. Honestly, I don't know what that means yet. But definitely people who are willing to open up to that level is kind of the goal. And yeah, I think that's about it. I think everything else was just pretty cool. I don't know if there's necessarily the takeaways from a podcast perspective or from a personal perspective, other than yeah. So I think we're good. So that's my live sleep processing. Judge me, whatever. I don't care. Now, so I'm gonna go to the live chat. Chat. I see a bunch of you guys. Hi. So I'm actually gonna go through and just take a look at this. If you guys have no questions, we can just end it. That's fine. Um, so first I see Anna just going in with these. So Anna, you're gonna have to help me out here. So, oh, as a view, okay. So the first comment here, she was like shocked by the pace. I'm assuming you mean the pace of the videos coming out. Yeah. Yeah. That's just the life. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, I think there's a reason why Kendrick, Benjamin, and I are like putting them out as frequently as we are. I mean, Kendrick and Benjamin are blowing me out the water though, for sure. I mean, they were going like one a day at certain points. I'm not doing that. Yeah, and having sleep third and thought, wow, one episode a week. Wow. Okay. Yeah, no. Really glad you like the long form. So let me see here. So Uzair, so go on to the Uzair one. Uzair is play last, so it's great to listen to someone who's so processed. Yeah, yeah. So sorry, I guess listening to me must be embarrassing, but yeah, no, he's super like, yeah, that was really good. So one other thing. Speaking of that, I think one of the things I have been processing personally is the pre episode planning. I was insecure about doing it initially. So for those of you guys who don't know, it's like all these episodes, I'm not just running into them. Like it's like I meet with the guests and they show interest, and then we actually have a conversation beforehand to basically flesh out what we're going to talk about. So it's like we almost have the conversation before we have the conversation, you know. And I've gotten a lot of kind of got a lot of pushback for that. But I like that because I think it leads to a like a mild version of what Uzair is doing all the time, which is it just the conversation doesn't feel like random or like stuttering. It's like it's very. I like the flow of a processed conversation. So that's been really cool. I think for me moving forward, I'm not going to talk to anybody unless we're able to have that pre-episode planning session. And I guess that's just my SI. Like that's just if people don't want to do it, that's fine. Like just this just might not be for you. So Beth. So random. Beth is an interesting person. I don't know if she wants to be called out right now. Beth is an interesting person in the Facebook. That's all I'm gonna say. Not in a bad way. I genuinely mean she's really cool to see. Like she gives no fucks, you guys. It's a very fun thing to see. But I think Beth has been very sweet, very supportive as well. So I appreciate you here. So what was this? I have a problem with overly negative FI identity and mood, right? Yeah, it sucks. So I don't know how to work on it either, but shout out to Ian. Felix is the GOAT. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so you need a Savior SI and a Savior SF guest to complete the spectrum. Savior SI and Savior SF. I may be having a Savior SI on the podcast soon, guys. So hint, hint, that may happen. As for the Savior SF, I don't know that many. There's maybe one person who I've reached out to who's Savior SF who may do it, but I'm if they don't, that's fine. But the SF one is interesting. I do think that'd be an interesting contrast because I'd probably get called the fuck out the whole time because I'm nerdy as fuck and I think I'm doing some SF, but I'm probably not. So I'll probably get like dragged the whole way, but maybe just maybe I need that. But yeah, so the SI may be coming soon. I can't guarantee that, of course, but that may happen. I have a few guests coming up, so that may happen. So how have these helped your own sleep process? That's a good question. So I think the hero's journey, right? The hero's journey for me and people of my type is, man, you guys are getting the prime inner world shit today. So I think for me, what the sleep last has to accept is what I've been calling for myself the Garden of Gethsemane moment. So for those of you who have no context, I grew up in a Christian background, so this is a very Christian thing. So Jesus, I'm sure you guys have heard of that guy. So at one point in his story, he's about to go on his mission, right? Like, or he's going to finalize his mission. And there's a period where he's alone and all of his friends basically abandon him, and he has to like wrestle with God. And he's saying, please take this cup of suffering from me, and he's wrestling with that, right? This loneliness and this mission, right? I think as a sleep last, that is inevitably what I have to go through. I've been terrified of this since like, who fucking knows? I don't know how long, years, right? And it's gonna happen. I think if I continue along this YouTube path, if I continue along these things that are valuable, I love you guys, but this happens to every content creator on the planet, right? If they're consistent and authentic, there's a point where they do something that's off to the rest of the world and they get temporarily abandoned or vilified or criticized. It's gonna happen. So I think by starting this YouTube channel and actually doing it in a way that's aligned with FI, I guess I'm starting to slowly embrace the fact that that's going to happen to me. I think I've been avoiding that in a lot of ways. But I think I'm slowly inching my way towards that moment. As for the sleep processing, I mean, you can judge. I was trying to do it. I only sleep process when I need to, as you can imagine. So I don't know. I can't answer that one, unfortunately. So yeah. Okay. So yeah, I don't know what you want to say to that. So I think that's about it. I think that's all the questions, unless you guys have any other questions. So yeah, new guests coming soon. They may not happen this week or next. Actually, there is one that's likely coming out within the next 2 days. So be on the lookout for that. But other than that one, there may be one that's next week, but other than that, it may just be kind of like, hey, Happy New Year type of deal. I do think I'm going to do these sleep processing sessions every 10, much like I do with my typing. That's my SI. It's my SI now. Just like with my typing process, I do a meta-analysis every 10. I'll probably do this every 10 just to kind of see how everything goes. So, I don't know how you guys felt about this. It's kind of awkward for me, but whatever. So if you guys liked it or didn't like it, just let me know. Thumbs up, thumbs down, all that fun stuff. Leave a comment. If you do like, whether it was this or just the interviews in general, I do recommend you guys subscribe. Honestly, yes, there's an ego element to it, but honestly, it is just more so for the notifications. I'm getting really tired of sending out, every time there's a new episode, I'm tired of sending it out, honestly. So if you guys could subscribe, if this is interesting to you, right, and you want to see more of this, just subscribe so you can know when things are coming out. So other than that, I'm just gonna sign out. Really great to see you guys. And I will catch you on the next one. Take care.